on to our next panel discussion. Now, this is going to be a very interesting talk as we're looking at, is there gender disparity in the event and experiential industry? And what better than having these incredible panelists who are joining us? First up, we've got Gitikka Ganju Dhar, founder, Ministry of Talk, anchor, actor. She's backed with 22 plus years of rich experience. Then we also have Nani Singh, the CEO of Showcase Events, been in the industry for more than 14 plus years, doing some amazing, wonderful curations. And also one of my favorites is Sound from the Desert of hers, some of the spectacular work which comes from her. We also are joined by Atul Nath, who's the founder and MD, Candid Marketing, an online marketing automation platform to manage marketing and brand campaigns. So he's also going to be joining us. Unfortunately, Poonam could not be here currently on that, but this entire thing is going to be moderated by Sushma Gaikwad, Director, ICE Global, and Whiscraft Mine, who's going to be moderating it. So who better than Sushma to do that? So thank you so much, and over to you, and welcome to the incredible panel. Over to you, Sushma. Thank you. Sushma, you're on mute. If I could just request you to kindly unmute, please. Love to hear your beautiful voice.
Yes, I'm audible, right? Hi, welcome. Yes. Thank you so much, Bhavna. And I think this is an amazing initiative, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion with very dear friends of mine. So welcome, Atul. Welcome, Gitikka. How are you doing, Nani? Lovely to see you as well.
Nice to see you too.
It is going to be a great 1 hour, and that's something that we can definitely promise you. The question is gender disparity, right? So I'm going to just open by saying or asking this question: is there gender disparity in the industry, in your perspective? And this entire discussion is going to be open. There is no question and answer. I'm just going to be throwing one question out there, and all of us will give our perspective on it. I hope we're all okay with it. Atul, Gitikka, and Nani? Yes?
Yeah, sure.
Super. So that being said, let's begin with Atul. Atul, I'd love to get your perspective. Do you think gender disparity exists in the experiential industry?
You know, Sushma, to begin with, it might be extremely inappropriate to ask me for my opinion first. In the spirit of gender disparity, I think it's the women who should speak first, rather than me mansplaining the gender disparity issue.
No, actually, you know, I'm sure both the ladies on this panel are going to agree with me. We really want to know your point of view. I mean, sure. Yes, we've got a voice, and we're not saying we're not going to be holding back about it. Yet we really want to get your perspective on it. And then, of course, Gitikka and Nani will join us.
Sure. See, you know, when I was asked to be on this panel, I was a little surprised, I must admit, because obviously the issue is a much larger issue. Our industry is only one part of the world at large. Our country, more importantly, which is of course the most relevant, and in today's times, unfortunately, the way the larger direction of society, the way it's going in the whole gender space, is not particularly encouraging. We've all seen the news, and I don't want to get into the specifics of it. So, you know, there are a whole lot of gender-related issues. I think from a gender equality point of view for opportunity, I would say that we are in a relatively better position than many industries out there. I think there have been a fair bit of opportunities for women, and I am directly talking about opportunities for women versus men, because obviously the gender disparity question is about that. Now, this is just my perspective, and I would be the first one to put my hands up and say I don't necessarily see it from a woman's point of view. You know, obviously, because I don't get to live in the shoes of a woman. I have a very strong, obviously, a male perspective. My business partner is a woman. She's worked with me for 20 years, and I would say in so many ways she has a better perspective of the business than I do. In so many ways, I find Amrita, my partner, is better suited to make decisions related to the business. And I don't mean business decisions related to women. I mean business decisions which are gender neutral in a manner of speaking, because the perspective she brings is in many ways better than my perspective. And I have found that to be true very often. So my personal experience with a person I've worked for 20 years as my business equal is that there should be parity. There is no question about it. I think I mean, three women here, I would say, are more intelligent and more entrepreneurial and are far more business suited than many men I know who are in our business. So there's no question about, parity in that sense. Question is, and I think this is one that the three of you and other women would be able to answer better, is how easy is it for women to participate, lead, be heard, etc. in the industry, and more importantly in the periphery of the industry, like clients, like the vendors ecosystem, etc. That's where the challenges really are. And honestly, I don't have any perspective on that because I don't face those challenges on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, excellent. So let me ask you, before I move on to Gitikka with a perspective, Atul, do you feel that certain roles, I mean, I'm saying gender disparity, and let's turn it on the head. Do you think certain roles in agencies are only reserved for women versus men? Like, for example, client servicing. So has that got to do really with, like what you said, the ability to multitask, etc., or is it got to do with the fact that it is a gender? Sometimes it's just the opposite. Like when you're saying a gender disparity, one has to even look at it whether about the men as well. It's not only about the women, is it? So do you think that is possible, that some roles are only for women and not for men?
No, I think, first of all, we're obviously speaking in broad strokes of generalizations. I find, obviously, some men have very good ability to multitask and do things that we, as a generalization and a stereotype, we say women are better at, or the other way around. There are, for example, it's stereotypical that men are better, for example, at negotiation with vendors, for instance. But I find that some women, I mean, will take negotiation to the other person to the cleaners in terms of negotiation. So I'm just talking in stereotypes, right? So please don't misunderstand. I don't mean to say I agree with this. I'm just saying that that's the generalization that we live with. So to answer your question specifically, Sushma, I think yes, because of these stereotypes, there are some people who say, oh, I'm looking for someone for this kind of role in servicing. So yes, a woman might be better suited for this role. And when they are obviously dealing with people on the other side in terms of clients, maybe some clients are more amenable to women servicing people, So I don't know. I mean, those are again stereotypes that unfortunately do exist.
I love the word you threw up, stereotypes. And I think that kind of governs us and this entire discussion. So I'm going to take it forward. Let me get in Gitikka. Now, Gitikka, you're an anchor, you're a television personality, you're an influencer in the true sense of the word. And now you've also started this amazing initiative called Ministry of Talk. You're doing content. You've really seen the entire graph, right? Now, my question to you is, does gender disparity exist in your perspective?
First of all, hi Sushma, hi Nani, and hi Atul. Good to see you all and everybody watching. Thank you for tuning in. So let me just give you a bit of a broad-based answer here. That what we're talking about here today is an extremely serious issue. When the leaders wrote the Constitution of India, they granted us the right to equality, which essentially means that the entire ecosystem has to come together to ensure that that right is granted and fulfilled. Forget our industry. Let's take a look at the broader corporate setup in India. We have abysmal numbers staring back at us. But with regard to our industry, I have one very, very basic question here, which I'd like to put out from this platform to everyone who's listening and also leaders who can make it happen out there, is that do we actually have conclusive studies Do we actually have statistical data to show us what the situation really is in our industry with the men and women when it comes to enrollment numbers, when it comes to the gender gap, when it comes to pay parity, when it comes to opportunities? I have very often heard a figure of between 35 to 40 being shared with us, and I'm sure it comes from some kind of a paper or the other. But first things first, if we really need to take this issue very seriously about whether or not gender disparity exists in the experiential industry in India or not, let's first roll up our sleeves, pay some money, get the experts to do studies, and actually take a look at the real figures on ground. Firstly, that. So I can't tell you whether gender disparity exists or not because I don't know the figures. Now, I am going to be talking from my experience and my perception.
Correct.
There's a huge difference between real data and how you perceive the world around you. So from my perception, what I've seen over the last 22 years is, yes, gender disparity exists in some sectors of our industry, and it exists not in some other sectors, and it exists in some very different ways in some other sectors. And when I say different ways, I mean to say that then the disparity is more skewed to the men. It's they who are facing the brunt and not always the women. Let me just, later on, I'll talk more. I don't want to take up so much time in my first answer. But when it comes to anchoring in the live industry, I think it's more skewed towards us. As women, I feel for the wrong reasons, for all the wrong reasons, and one of which is the male gaze. For all the wrong reasons, we get more opportunity, we get the more important opportunity, we probably get paid a little higher many times. Great, good, but why are we even doing anchors to this extremely sexist lens? So I'm on one hand, I'm happy that, women get more opportunities in the anchoring space, but is that how I ideally would want it to be? No. As an anchor, I primarily compete with the men in my category for some strange reason. So I know that there is an unfair disadvantage that I bring to the table, which for me, I'm a bit of a tiger there. I'd rather not have that unfair disadvantage. I'd rather just be looked at as an artist and not as a female artist coming onto the table.
Correct.
So yes, this is my category, but it's more skewed towards us. And I'd definitely like to talk more about the agency setup and your various sectors, the various divisions as we go on in this discussion. I'm sure Nani also wants to join in the conversation. So
Excellent. I really love the points that you brought up, Gitikka. It's very nice that you kind of divided the entire perspective and funneled it into the fact that, you know what, it could exist, but it could exist both ways. And that's exactly the point. So I hope, Atul, you're making notes here as well. That being said, Nani, what's your perspective, Nani?
So first, hi, Sushma, Gitikka, and Atul. Hi. Nice to be on the panel together, and heard some interesting views from Atul and from Gitikka, and I'm glad actually we started with Atul because that immediately, puts us on the thing that we got to now we've got somebody we can get at, okay, right? Because we're talking about gender disparity. So this is like Atul, when we were back in school, we had debates, right? So this is really the other side, and so it's interesting because I have to say that when I started, I got into events, and at that point of time, initially, I did feel that a guy's word definitely had more weightage than if I was trying to say something. So I used to have my other associates and colleagues who were with me that okay, fine, aap boliye, maybe they'll listen to you and they'll agree to whatever you're saying, and then I realized it's really not about that. It is about how you're putting your point across and putting across to the other side who you are and where you're standing in this entire scheme of things. And that really kind of works, Sushma. I've been in the events for 14 years now, right? My own company for the last 2 years. And I've seen that work. So honestly, I haven't felt even for a moment that, okay, fine, because I'm not a guy, I won't be taken seriously. Not at all. It totally depends on how you're projecting yourself to your client, how much confidence you're able to give them, what is the kind of product quality that you're ensuring your client, which is exactly what a guy can do also, right? Negotiations, Atul has already given us the credit. We definitely, I think as women, we are better negotiators than men are. And so I will take that credit when it comes to that. Of course, now when it comes to vendor dealing, now that is an area where I can say, okay, probably just maybe that space, a vendor, because there are all types of vendors. See, like not everybody will be like, okay, fine, I can go into an office and I can talk to the CEO. It doesn't work like that, right? The vendors are all types of people. And you may be talking right to the baseline vendor. So there again, I felt sometimes the vendors take a guy telling them seriously, more seriously than if a woman is telling them, right? That was one space which I felt there was a little bit of a gap. But that gap also I realized was not that difficult to fill, because after we started the Kasoli Rhythm and Blues Music Festival, and handling stuff up in the mountains and dealing with just about all sorts of people, but they took you seriously because you were there for them. Again, exactly, like I feel the bottom line is how you come across, whether it is a vendor, it is a client, it is an attendee, it could be anybody. It totally depends in an event perspective, how you come across to the other side, what is the kind of confidence that you're giving, and what is the kind of reassurance the person is getting out of your persona or your presentation. If they're comfortable, I don't think now in times, especially like over the last few years, that I can say that a man has been able to get more business than a woman. I don't really think so, not anymore. I'm sorry, Atul, that wasn't meant to be a thing on you, but just my
Yeah,
thoughts.
this is it's all about man versus woman as much as the
Yeah.
fact is there's something that really resonates with me. I also really feel, and I'm just adding my two bit, it also depends on your own experience, right?
Yes.
And your own experience. So for me, when I started 27 years ago, there was no man and there was no woman. It was a job role.
Yeah.
It was being a professional. So, when you talked about vendors, I know, vendors, even till today, sometimes used to shiver if I called. So it is also about where you're coming from, and a lot about your background and where you're coming from and how you fit into the industry. And that's my little bit of two bit. Now, I want to move on to a bit more, like, get a little deeper. Okay. This gender conversation normally takes the entire aspect of man versus women. And it's very important for us to realize it's not man versus women. It is all of us working together as professionals. So if there exists disparity, now where are the various forms that disparity exists? Number one, meeting out job roles. Yeah. Number two is pay scales. It could be pay scales. I don't know. I'm just saying. It could be also very simple hiring processes. Yeah. Number three, it could be even in safety. Number four, it could be in interpersonal uh, aspects of how you treat women or how you treat men. Yeah, because there are many women entrepreneurs at the helms of enterprises as well. So don't really want this to be a male bashing or female bashing, because it's about gender neutrality. Yeah. So I just wanted to set the context. So if there exists, what is the impact of it? So I'm going to now begin with Gitikka, and then I'm going to get you up next, Atul. Okay. So I'm not going to do men's first here. So Gitikka, what is the impact of gender disparity according to you?
So let me now talk about agency structures in general across the experiential industry. Let's not talk just about women artists here.
Right.
You used the word male bashing. So maybe a few sentences of what I'll say would sound like male bashing, but it's not male bashing. It's the truth. It's the reality. It's the factual information of the space that we live and exist and work in as women. The fact of the matter is that women in India are unsafe beyond certain hours of the day, and that's how it is, and that is the reality. And I'm not male bashing, but that's the reality. It's the men out there who are doing it to the women out there, right? So it's them. So a lot of times men get up and say that why should we have special infrastructure? Why should we have special procedures? Why should we have special policies in place for women who are choosing at their own will to come in and work in our organizations? Well, the answer to that really is that because it's the men out there who messed it up for the women in the world. So sorry, but you somewhere owe it to us to put this back in place for us to be able to come in and work. I really feel in our industry there is a problem in the very foundation as to how agencies are really structured, and it's very sad that these structures have continued for so many years over the decades. You have women coming into work. Okay, I have some basic fundamental questions. Why aren't there more women in production? Or why aren't there more women in crews behind the console? Or why don't we see more women in photography crews or creative crews? Why do we only see women wearing great clothes and smelling great and putting on a great lipstick and going and doing time presentations? Okay, why? Because are you giving them simple things like home drops? Are you giving them verified cab services? Are you giving them, is WeCare staring at them from the wall on your office? Or is the Vishaka panel guidelines up on your office? Or do you have maternity leave guidelines in place? So much that needs to be done in the Indian experiential industry. You're building a house, like building a house. A family builds a house, right? And you have a grandmother, grandfather, the parents, the two children, you build rooms for everybody. You do it in a way that everybody can live and function there properly. Similarly, I feel the Indian experiential industry is losing out on such fantastic talent, on such fantastic commitment levels, which is something that the Prime Minister had said a few years ago, Modi ji, that we have such fantastic talent in the female gender out there. Reach out, create situations that will help them come in and want to work in events, and not just leave midway when their kids start hitting 6 or 7 or 10, because that's where it becomes difficult to manage. So I feel we'll have to take a very, very hard-nosed look at the way we've structured our agencies and what kinds of policies we have in place that I'm sorry to say will support. I have no shame in saying support, okay? Because we're not the ones who are messing with that. Forget the man out there on the street. I'm sure women encounter all kinds of predators at work. You will have to create that ecosystem and nail it to perfection to actually get in that talent that is out there, educated talent that is out there from the female gender. So yeah, sorry, Atul.
Very, very well said, Gitikka. I'm loving the passion, and I'm also on a lighter note. I'm loving the T-shirt. The T-shirt is going with the vibe of the conversation.
It's super woman, and I was hoping someone would bring it up and say Superman, and I found that person. Superwoman.
So you're very close on the heels of that passion. So Atul, what is your perspective?
The moment I saw the T-shirt, Gitikka, it was there in my head that I'm going to mention, and I was going to mention Superwoman and Superman, even though.
But that's why this panel.
No, that's because one is that, second is I'm very scared of you. Second, no, I'm just kidding. So, no, okay. I think Gitikka, you make a very important point. Because if something is in an ecosystem is out of equilibrium, is out of whack, is out of balance, then it requires some amount of rebalancing, because without rebalancing, it is extremely unlikely that you're going to be able to find any way forward in a balanced manner, as obvious as that may sound. What I would like to, just kind of throw into the mix of this discussion is, for us to just zoom out a little bit and take a helicopter view of two things. One, a perspective of our country as a whole. And I do remember reading about this stat a few months ago, though I don't remember the exact number. But the reality is that in India, the sheer number of women who are in the workforce compared to economies which are more developed than India is abysmally low in industry as a whole. Now, and the hypothesis is that if we could get more women, obviously capable women, into the workforce, that in itself would change the state of the economy in India without doing anything else.
Exactly.
So now that's the macro perspective that we must have in our minds. The second thing we must look at is that whatever is that statistic, for a moment, let's say that statistic is 20%. Is that statistic for our industry better than 20% or worse than 20% or the same as 20%? Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand the issue of roles, Gitikka, which was the point you were making, that whether the women should have better opportunity in production, etc., in non-stereotypical women roles. And I can't disagree with that. But overall, what is the percentage in our industry? Which is not to say we don't need to improve. We do, because if whatever that percentage is, it's still low, right? But I think we should keep that in mind and make sure we keep on making progress as an industry for ourselves across all types of roles as well. But I think the key point you make is a very important one, which is that there is a need for rebalancing, and that rebalancing, in my opinion, needs to obviously be done at the top. And the best way to do it at the top is to have women at the top. If you have women at the top, those women make more balanced decisions because they come with women's perspectives, right? Which is why I feel that we should continue, among other things. I'm not saying ye nahi hoga to aur kuch nahi hoga. I'm saying, among other things, we should continue to make sure more and more women get to higher and higher and, decision-making positions, because then the rebalancing across the industry is more likely to happen. And I'm not putting that as a condition. I'm just saying that could be another factor that could help us.
I really like what you said, Atul, yet, and Gitikka and Nani. Before I come to you, Nani, I just want to make a point here. The fact is that disparity exists in almost every industry. So is this possibly a societal concern? I mean, I'm kind of broadening the horizon a little bit. I hope you can hear me, because I was having some mic issues. You guys can hear me, right? Clearly? Okay. So is it societal? Because when you look at automobile, when you look at engineering, not software, when you look at automobiles and engineering and all that, there is disparity. There is huge disparity that exists, even with women who want to join the industry. At least there are women engineers. And if I talk about software engineering, there are ladies who join the field, but when they get married, they leave, right? Now, for us, I must tell you, because I run an institute, which is an education institute in media and entertainment, you have no idea how many parents I speak with, because they are worried about their girls joining the event industry. So is this a societal issue, or is it a branding issue? Yeah, I just wanted to place it. We'll discuss it, since when Atul spoke, that's something that really came to my mind. I'm going to move on to you, Nani. If you could give us your perspective on the impact as well.
Yeah, so Gitikka and Atul have covered it very well. And I would like to say seriously that it is really not about a man versus a woman thing. And exactly like you said, it is purely societal. See, over the years, I'm not talking about now globally, I'm talking about our Indian scenario to make a start, right? And over the years, what has happened? A woman has always been seen as a homemaker, and a man is supposed to be like the breadwinner, I mean, going out and working, etc. Right? That's been our system for the longest time. That's how we've seen the structure of our society grow. Over the years, the women have stepped on it. They've stepped out of the homes, right? So what are we doing? We are multitasking. We are managing the home as well as we are managing outside. Because we are able to manage the home well, we are able to bring those skills to our professional spaces, right? So there is definitely way more quality in that. Now, to make an entire mindset change, that fine, there is a woman and she can do as much or probably better than her male counterpart. That is going to take some time. And I have to say that over the years, it has taken time. And it has started happening. it has happened, and it's happened beautifully. There are many women leaders already in the industry now, not just in the events industry. Look at the biopharma, look at the technical industry, look at the banking industry for that matter, where like numbers, everybody thought was never a women's game, right? And we've got some women who are heading various banking institutions. So the point is, it's about a mindset change. Things are changing over the last few years. Dramatic changes have happened, I have to say. However, I think at the end of the day, the way we all need to look at the industry is to work in a collaborative way so that we get the best benefit out of both the genders. The men contribute as well as the women. The women, the biggest skill is multitasking, and I'm sure the men would agree with that, because of the way we are as like a human being, as like a daughter, a mother, a daughter-in-law, a mother-in-law, then later, and then like getting out into the professional space. There are like, look at the number of areas we have to deal with on a daily basis. It's not even like, okay, my role as a daughter is finished, now I'll become the daughter-in-law, now I'm going to be the mother. It doesn't work like that. So our life has multiple roles happening every single day. So how are we going to bring that into our professional space? And I think we're probably doing that quite well, and that is why women are getting a place. So the only thing is, yes, that stereotyping is changing and has changed a lot. The only big factor which Gitika also pointed out, and which I will definitely bring up again, is safety. It is such a pity that we are scared of our own counterparts. And, that is a mindset that, I don't know, as an industry, as human beings, I really don't know. I mean, we have to hit it. We have to try and change that, because once we overcome that, I don't think there is any space. Like we guys work through the night, right? Being in the events industry, we are not looking at कि अभी 2 बज गया, so now we have to pack up. We'll come back to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Let the vendors work. It doesn't work like that, because they'll also disappear. But I'm willing to sit there, but I'm terrified of my team and my girls sitting over there. Why? Because you just don't know what can happen to anyone. You're totally responsible for every single person. And then also, coming back to the same thing where gender disparity comes in, it's not just about the girls. I'm even worried about the boys on my team. Honestly, because just about anything can happen. Look at the way things are going on nowadays. So safety, I feel, is the only big issue that I find as a challenge. But of course, definitely women are coming up in the professional space, and they are looking at bringing about changes in a very positive way. And I'm hopeful that over the next few years, I mean, we're pretty much there, but over the next few years, I know that we'll have a lot more stepping on it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Nani. You said it. You know what you said? You said something which was really triggers my next question. Okay, it literally is a trigger to my next question, and that point of discussion is, what do we do about it? I mean, we spent half an hour discussing the fact that it exists. It may exist. It exists in some form or the other. The fact is that it exists in some form or the other. So if it does exist, what can we do about it? So what kind of solutions can we find to shift the narrative of the experiential industry? So I'm just kind of putting it all together. What we've discussed till now is the fact that stereotypes exist. I love that point about yours, Atul. I mean, when you said that, I realized, oh my God, we're all thinking only in stereotypes. And sure, that's important. I love the point that Gitikka talked about is data. There is no data that exists. At least when other industries, one knows how many percentage of women are employed and in which job role, what is their age. There's a lot of data available. For the experiential industry, I don't think there is any credible data as yet. Yeah, there is, but not credible data as yet. We need support. I love that what you said, Gitikka, about, one needs support. And I think more than support, I think one needs to be seen. And I'm going to be a little vocal about this before I come into the solutions. And I'll tell you what it is, okay? The fact is that there are many women entrepreneurs across the country. And we are not looking at the rest of the country. We are only looking at the metros. What about the mini metros? What about the women who are in, there are like women sitting in many, many small metros and even in small towns who are today really looking at being entrepreneurs. So what about them as well? So whatever we do, we have to also look at how do we drive change to reduce the disparity for women in the industry across India. So I'm going to come to you, Gitikka. We're going to follow the same route, becomes easier. Yeah, I'm getting old. Then I'm like, who have I to ask next, right? So my question to you, Gitikka, is what is the solution? Is the solution in branding it right? Is the solution in education? Is the solution in collaboration, in conversation, in shaking people up and saying, hey, listen, wake up, we're equal, right? Where is the solution? So what's your perspective of the solution? And I want to hear what you had to say a little further earlier.
So solutions, which is what everyone should focus on, apart from panel discussions that have now been a part of for the last 10 years, but then nothing really goes beyond those panel discussions. Sometimes it does, but mostly it doesn't. Let's get industry organizations to actually devote time and finance to get those data studies in place. Because when you have the real numbers staring back at you, you know how grave the problem really is. And I promise you, the numbers that will stare back at them will probably, shake the floor beneath their feet as to how huge this notional loss of talent in the female gender is in the Indian experience industry. One, let's get data. Okay. Two, um, sensitization, spreading awareness, and shaking things up a little bit through multiple layers of messaging has to be done this year, next year, the year beyond that. This issue has to be a priority. It has to be a priority stuck like a chit on the wall of industry organizations to actually address it, because this is not just about treating women better or giving them more opportunities. It's also, I mean, end of the day, it's about our industry, and we need better talent coming in. And if half of that talent is just if it's not finding these right opportunities, it's our loss as an industry, isn't it? Um, Here, before we kind of move this over to Atul, I want to present a perspective that is very interesting that I did not do earlier when I was speaking as an artist. As an artist, there's another thing where there is a lot of disparity now. Okay, so can I, with your permission, may I spend a minute on this, Sushma?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, please.
So now, see, um, I am blessed with Kashmiri genes. So as I'm aging, the process is a little slower as compared to probably many other women out there. I haven't yet gone into labs and gotten injections on my face, but hey, I mean, it's age is going to happen. Okay. Now tell me, why is Kabir Bedi at the age that he is, or Siddharth Basu sir, or Roshan sir, or anyone? They're fantastic anchors, but they are very easily put on the biggest stages without probably thinking too much about their age and how they look and all of that. It's just about hardcore talent and expertise and skill. Why is it not like this with the women in our industry? Whether it's a singer, or whether it's an anchor, or whether it's a dancer. I have heard from so many of my friends in experiential agencies how women who are older or little heavier in weight or have wrinkles on their face are spoken about in corporate meetings, in social space meetings. Why, as an industry, are the men and the women, for God's sake, not standing up for their colleagues and not trying to make people understand that this is so passe, so archaic? You know, I mean, we tend to tell ourselves, don't look at America for everything, don't look at England for everything. But for God's sake, I think in this area, you have a Meryl Streep there who's going on and on and on, and it's like, wow, she's really like the hottest thing on the planet when it comes to being an artist. But in India, there are so many of us, who've had to wage intense emotional, physical battles to years and years and years to actually get the industry to say, okay, fine, you're here and you're good at what you do, and we're going to continue working with you. Why this disparity? Why is a man at my age not called an old man? And why am I at umpteen meetings, gossip sessions, and never called an old woman? Why? This is disparity. I'll come. That was all that I wanted to say as an artist. Once we have more opinions, I'll kind of come back and talk more about the experiential agency structure. So, yeah.
I'm loving your T-shirt. It's giving you another
Poor Atul, we are not envious of Atul at all today. Poor guy. He's having to stand up for all the men in the industry. Come on, Atul, go for it.
Not at all.
He is very different from a lot of the men that I know in the industry, and he's a beacon of hope. Atul is a very evolved guy, so good to have him on.
That's why he's here with us. But Atul,
no, not at all. I'm not feeling honestly. I'm not feeling personally attacked. Forget about personally. I'm not feeling attacked at all.
Correct. That's not even the idea.
The reason I'm not feeling that way, Nani, very importantly, is because, see, I can't disagree with anything that any of you are saying. I think all of these are very real challenges and problems that that I face on a day-to-day basis. I mean, for example, what Gitikka just talked about, that, you know, the in the artist space, the disparity between on an age basis. Now, I have faced that in a situation where I'm talking to a client and I'm suggesting artist solutions, and the client's turning around and saying very similar things, and I don't want to repeat it because I don't even want to speak what it's unspeakable in so many ways. True. But I face that because a client, you see, very easy for a client to say it, right? He doesn't have to go and face the artist. So from that perspective, I see that as an everyday problem. But, you know, unfortunately, what is that saying? He who pays the fiddler gets to decide the tune. So, or maybe I should say, she who pays the fiddler gets to decide the tune. So, you know, that unfortunately is the reality. I mean, why are Bollywood films, which maybe some of us think are absolute crap, are made because that's what the masses want. You see, I mean, at the end of the day, the guy with the money decides. So I'm not saying that's right or wrong, and I'm not saying that should be the way it is in the future. Maybe we need to do the hard work. And when I'm saying we, I'm talking about all of us as agencies who are helping clients decide, by educating them and saying that, well, this is not the basis you should be using. The basis to be used is this. For example, and Gitikka, I will say this to your benefit, and I'm not just saying this because you're on this panel. You are the single hardest working person who I have seen as an anchor. Even though that is not the only role you do in your life, but that you are easily the hardest working anchor I've ever worked with. Man or woman, I'm not even using the word, because and to me that in itself is a reason to work with Gitikka. Where do you go from there? There's no discussion, right? Now, anyway, coming back to why don't you say what you want, Gitikka, and then I'll come back to the 1 or 2 points I want to make.
So I'm just saying, exactly supporting what you're saying. Atul, you know, our agency ecosystem in India, the men and the women who present are so evolved. The Indian Experiential Agency, when it comes to women artists, are so evolved. It's wonderful. It's the end client, as you said, Atul, that is the problem. It's not the men and the women in our industry that are the problem. Sure. If that was a problem, then Uttab still wouldn't be the best bet for a live event even today. Why would I be getting hired? I'm here. I'm keeping it alive because it is these guys who go out there and pitch me, right?
That's because you're still in your 30s, na, Gitikka?
Yeah, it's there. You're pitching me there. But as you said, Atul, you have to keep up the effort. That's all I wanted to say, that the men and women out there, keep up the effort and slowly we'll change this together. You continue, Atul.
Yeah. So see, the way I look at it, I was going to make 2 points. The first is that I think we need to, instead of looking at it as a way of finding solutions, we need to find ways to make progress. Solutions, by their definition, almost seem like ye kar denge to problem solve ho jayega. That's not going to happen. I think we need to look at progress. One of the ways to always see whether you're making progress or not is data. So if we knew where we were, because data doesn't lie, perceptions can lie, data doesn't lie. So if we could have data of 5 years back in 2015, and we could compare that with today, then we could see whether we've made progress or not. So let's make a start today and start putting it together data so that 5 years from now, we're able to see whether we've made progress or not. Now, the question is, how do we make progress? I think Gitikka mentioned one, and I would like to make it even more broad-based than that, which is, I would call it, rather than simply saying sensitize, I would say we need to educate people. It is very much a need to educate people. Now, the need for education is in society at large for treating all people as equals, all people based on their ability rather than any other basis, caste, creed, gender, XYZ. But we should start where we can make an impact, which is our industry. So whatever is required in the larger ecosystem, we should do it in ours. We should say that we need to find a way to educate people that gender cannot be a basis either positively or negatively to make a decision. It needs to be based on ability. And that, I think, education is what we need to do for our entire industry ecosystem, agencies, vendor partners, as I would like to call them, clients, and anybody else who needs that. Those are the 2 points.
I love that. And also new hires, and also people who are learning or being educated in
students should be part of that ecosystem very much.
Yeah, students. Yeah, very, very important. Yeah, very nice point.
Very important.
Thank you for that. Very good point. Okay, Nani, let's come to your ideas about how we can make progress. I'm grabbing what Atul said because it's very pertinent. You know, solutions is such a broad-based term. Let's talk about how we can get a little better. How can we make progress? So what are your points?
See, what I appreciated what Atul said, and that's very, very valid. See, basically, this is such a wide perspective discussion in the sense that the subject is so wide and there are so many areas. So it's very difficult if we try and say, fine, you've got a headache, you have an aspirin and your headache is going to be well and you'll be fine. It's not something like that. It's not a solution like this. It's a solution that's going to show its impact over a period of time. And that is progress. And he really hit the nail by saying that, because the point is that things, like I said earlier also, things have been changing over the last few years. Now we have to get a data to see that change, which we don't have. So now, and also to be able to bring about the change from our end as event companies and agencies or whatever we'd like to call ourselves, who are in the space of experiential events, etc. The point is, it is up to us also to put this pressure when we are meeting up with a client or we're meeting up with exactly the person who wants to play the fiddle, because he has the right to choose the fiddler, exactly like Atul said. So the point is that we need to make that change with those people, whether it be men or women, it doesn't matter. Who is going to be representing them? What is the kind of event, etc. Again, it's totally how professional you are, how you're presenting it to the people. And if everybody as a community, as a team, we do it, I'm sure we'll be able to see very, very positive changes. And you know what? This is not something which is not doable. It's very doable. The only thing is that we need to make a start and make that start quick enough, which I think, like I said earlier, it has started happening. But now with more awareness, I think we just need to push it. And exactly like Gitikka said as well earlier, that we are talking about the metros, okay, where all of us are doing this kind of stuff and all. Now there are talking about women entrepreneurs. You go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Look at these little organizations that have set up. Right? I'm not talking about the event space right now. I'm talking about, for example, you had like a Seva which became so big. Okay, what was that about? There was one woman who took that on. And now, of course, look at the way it's grown. Then there are loads of other places as well where women have taken on, be it organic farming, be it, I mean, as small, like I would say small because it's like a basic thing from a Punjabi household to have a pickle industry. But I mean, basically, that woman's entrepreneurial brain took her across beyond that kitchen of her household to actually develop a product she could market. How many of those are picked up? You know, so the point is, as now coming back to the events industry and coming back into our space of experientials. So I think, again, all this kind of stuff needs to be documented to see where women have come in today and where a collaborative effort has worked very well, because there are some areas where maybe, whether it's a man or a woman, you've got to stand up and speak for yourself. And I'm not saying that men are less talented in any way. they are, I mean, the kind of, I would say, the analytical stint they have in them. Like we women, most of us, at least me for sure, we get swayed and taken, we get carried forward by our heart. And we start thinking with our heart and, okay, fine, let's do this, in the space of events I'm talking about. Jo bhi hai, acha, how we do this plus XYZ. And I'm sure, Gitika, you do that as well, right? Okay, fine, I have to speak for 45 minutes, sir. It doesn't matter, don't worry. Another 5-7 minutes, I'll do it for you. What the hell? But where I've seen that with my men colleagues, they may also do it, but they're able to put it across to the client because they think with their head, and we guys tend to get flown with the heart. So I think, at the end of the day, if we work collaboratively, we'll see phenomenal progress in this line for sure. And I think that would be like headed towards a solution for this, where we can get women back into, not I won't say women back, but I'll say women into the mainstream, and also be able to show up as leaders, to show their actual skills and qualities.
So, I just want to ask you guys, I mean, we have a little time. So this is it's a crazy question, okay? I really think one of the reasons that disparity exists is because there's lack of respect. Or because there's lack of, I don't know what that word is. Gitika, you're a words craftsman, right? So what is a wordsmith? What is that word? Lack of respect and even lack of knowledge.
Appropriate social behavior.
Correct. Now, I'll tell you, there have been many times, and I'm just sharing a very personal, very, very personal perspective. Please forgive me for all those who are watching. I, given the kind of person I am, very vocal, very in the face, I am called Sushma Bhai. Okay? Lovingly, of course. Yeah. Atul, you've not heard of it. I'll tell you on the phone. I'm first. I have to tell you this. Yeah. So what? And honestly, hand on heart, I look at it as with respect. I'm like, oh, cool. Just about a few weeks ago, I thought to myself, why aren't they calling me Sushma Ben? You're getting it. So my point to you is that we ourselves as women, sometimes we get stereotypical ourselves. We are victims of stereotypes ourselves in our own thoughts, in the way we look at ourselves, our own self-image. So it becomes very important, and Atul, I'm just sharing this, it becomes very important that we have to dispel the stereotypes first. I'm not taking full responsibility of it, but why is it that when someone, in your face and like totally, it's fine because you're a professional, you do what you need to do to get your work done. It's not because you're a woman doing a man's job, you're a professional doing a job. Okay? So, question is, how can we drive that respect? How can we as women and
this is such a fantastic question you asked. This is so important. First of all, I don't agree when they call you Sushma Bhai. Sushma is good enough to make people pee in their pants. You don't need to add Bhai to that.
Or their skirts.
Or their skirts. Well said, Atul.
It's said with love. It's said with love. It's said with a lot of.
Firstly, the earlier question that you asked about solutions, I'll just add one more little bit to that. So we have you, Sushma, on the panel here, and you were one of the first women in the Indian experiential industry. I think you're not celebrated enough. You should be celebrated more, showcased, your achievements showcased more, put out there so that younger girls and younger women get inspired. You, Nani, are another such example that needs to be celebrated, showcased. I think we really need to celebrate our existing role models, female role models in the industry. We're not doing that enough for younger generation to get more inspired. So more campaigns coming out there for all of you. What did you ask me just now? Respect, yeah. Respect. So my basic question is, why as a woman do I even need to drive respect in the eyes of a man, or to worry about it, or to think about it, or to strategize how to get it? I don't give a damn, okay? There are many men who come up and tell me that, oh, Gitikka, you're so well behaved, and you don't wear such clothes, and oh, you don't drink in public. And I often tell them, hey, listen, don't make me a devi. I don't want to be a devi. I'm a bore. I would have loved to be in some other way, but this is who I am, and I've always been. This is the real organic me. Having said that, don't sit in front of me and pull down another woman who's choosing to drink or to wear or to, be promiscuous or to do whatever the hell that she wants. Why should women have to drive respect in your industry's mind? I don't even think we should worry about this question at all. And yeah, every single time that you feel that you are yourself falling into a trap of being stereotypical, correct yourself, stand up, admit it publicly, so that the women out there, other younger people, don't think it's the right thing to do, and move on. Yeah.
Correct.
Absolutely.
I think respect is also more to do with respect, self-respect. It's not about driving respect. When you've got to say no, learn to say no. It's about not being taken for granted. It's about taking a stand where it matters. It is, and this is especially for not only men, women, but men as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So
For
it
both.
is about, so I think not so much of demanding respect from the industry. The question was, do you think self-respect, respect overall in general is missing in the industry for self, as well as for the aspect of the fact that gender needs to be equal?
Yes, here again there is a disparity. There is a disparity. I feel the men, when they are facing clients or they are facing vendors, they go through far more situations that break self-respect completely.
Correct.
That doesn't happen so much to women who are at the forefront. The clients won't do that as much to the women. But it is these men who are there. And I think as an industry, we lack self-respect. We lack spine. We lack 6, 7, 8 months have broken us down, of not having work. We need to have far more might. And might will come from not only organizing our finances better in the years ahead, because that is where the spine will start standing up from. That is where our self-respect will have any importance, because if there's no money on the table, then what spine, what self-respect? So I think all that is many, many years away. Hopefully in COVID 2.0 version of the Indian experiential industry, we as professionals, whether agencies, whether vendors, whether artists, everybody will develop self-respect and spine and learn to stand up for what is right and learn to say no and enough to our clients out there.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Atul, any thoughts on that? We want to hear your thoughts.
On something related, though not directly that, which is, Gitikka just mentioned about we should celebrate women achievers in the industry, and she mentioned both of you, and of course there are others.
Yes.
I wonder if, and here I'm going to say something slightly stereotypical, but bear with me. I wonder if women in our industry, like very often everywhere, tend to not be stepping forward and saying, look at me, even though they deserve to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas the men do.
Yes, bang on.
Right?
You're right.
The men have, again, this is totally stereotypical. Guys tend to be far more me, look at me. Right? And to that extent, I think you should, women should step forward and say, what they often say, that a man being pushy is assertive, a woman being pushy is aggressive.
Yeah.
Right? Now
Exactly.
Also, I think women are very wary of stepping on male egos in our industry.
And big time so, because the kind of slam that you get post that, it's not even worth having stepped on it. And you say, fine, just let it go. Yeah, just do what you want. So, those kind of things do happen.
Yeah, but you may have to, accept what comes with that and say, well, that sounds like his problem.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
So
So
that is something where our assertiveness needs to come in and needs to be considered assertive and not aggressive. That is where I think as women, we need to become a little more assertive, for sure.
Nani, what I would say is don't expect it to be considered assertive. To a hell with the people who don't think it's assertive and
Yeah.
think it's aggressive.
That's also true. That's also true.
Yeah,
That's
why
also
care
true.
about- Because as long as you keep caring about what the guys are going to think, you are then putting the onus on that person, which it should not be. So
Why
I
give
don't
them
know.
that much importance? Yeah, they don't need it.
And
Exactly. So
power.
just be what you are. Give your best to whatever you're doing. And honestly speaking, I don't think respect is not something you can command out of anybody. And it could be for a man or for a woman. It has to be earned. Yes, I agree that sometimes you have to step on it and bring yourself forward so that those who don't know about you need to know about you. And that's about it. And that's true for a man and for a woman, for both for that matter, where respect is concerned. But yes, of course, you don't go harping about it. And you're so right, Atul. That's really the principle of my life, at least for all my years till now, that I don't care a damn about what the other person has to think about me. If what I'm doing it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to give it my best shot. Thereafter, if you don't understand my best shot, it's your problem. And
Yeah,
then I
but
don't want to be with you.
yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. Otherwise
Then you got to take a call.
You
You're going to take a call on that then.
Yeah.
Huh?
So we have reached the close. We are
Yes, I can see that on the side.
2 minutes.
It's one
So
very
I'm
important point that probably you should make, or Atul should make. But I'll just slip it in. Is
Gitikka,
it's not that
Gitikka, before we close, I just want you to give your make that point, and then if you could close with your closing remarks, so seamlessly go into the point, and then with your closing remarks. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So quickly, I just wanted to say, and I hope Atul will speak more about this, is that industry associations or whatever need to have more women sitting in offices, and it's only going to happen if in real terms it's the functioning, the elections and all of that is just not going to be so difficult and scary for women to endure. So I think somewhere there the change will start, and we will probably give me one association in this country that has a female president in the Indian Experiential Circuit. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nani. I don't know. You would know better. One is that. And lastly, I'd like to sum up by saying that as an industry, perception and overall experience of my being here for these last 2 decades, it hasn't been that awful. It's been very good, much better than I would have been in the film industry. Absolutely. Or if I had been in the television industry. Oh my goodness, I'm just I feel respected here. I feel valued here. I feel like my opinion matters, and my skill is respected. I'm in a better place, and I will say that the day I die. So it's a wonderful industry to be in. Yes, there's disparity. We've spoken about all the points, and Sushma will of course believe when she closes. Let's do something about this now. Let's make it a priority, and let's make this industry even better than it already is. And thank you for having me on this panel.
Thank you, Gitikka. Atul, your closing sentence now.
Yeah, I'm just going to make the same 2 points. I think we need to focus on making progress. I think progress should be measured in terms of putting together data, and I'm pretty sure EEMA is in a position to potentially do that. And I think we should, not they should. And I think progress, as long as tomorrow is better than today, I think we're in a good place.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Atul. Nani?
My pleasure.
So basically, it's been a very interesting session. And I have to say that at the end of the day, I feel the bottom line is if you don't respect your own self, you will never be able to step out and bring in respect for anybody else, whoever you're struggling for in the first place. Make yourself visible, make yourself prominent. And where women in the industry is concerned, especially experiential, since that's our mainstream over here, and there's a lot of good work going on. So ladies, step on it. And you don't have to look at anybody for that respect. It's up to you. You can make it. You will be visible. And honestly speaking, there is nothing to hold women back in anything. And trust me, the men are not the barriers. We ourselves are our barriers. We're just using the gender disparity here as a barrier. For my years of experience in the experiential industry, I have had no issues at all. In fact, I've had a lot of collaborative support from all the men and who've respected what I've said to them and what I've come up with. So I have to say, I think a lot depends on you. So step on it, ladies. And I don't think there's anything holding us back. And don't use gender disparity as an excuse for not stepping on it.
Very well said. Thank you, Nani. And I want to say it was a wonderful, wonderful 1 hour. I don't know where it slipped, and we are right on time.
Yeah,
Don't worry,
true.
Bhavna.
And Bhavna is back. Bhavna is back
And
to throw
Bhavna
us
is back.
out.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Everything experiential. Thank you, panelists. It was fabulous. Enjoyed it. And Red Carpet, rocket. Yes, for me, in closing, I must say the one thing that stuck is education. We shift our mindset, we shift our attitude, we shift skilling, make skilling completely gender neutral. The minute we do that, I think the entire scape of the industry will start shifting slowly. So progress, even if it's slow, it's progress. So I think that's something we all should aim for. So thank you, everyone. And Bhavna, over to you.
Thank you, Sushma. You were amazing. And thanks, Atul and Gitikka.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Atul. Thank you, Gitikka. Thank you, Nani. And thank you, Sushma. We couldn't have had a better panel than a talk on this topic, and definitely switches from the notional thinking to a factual thinking of what all you said, because it was backed with a lot of experience and a lot of facts. So once again, a big, big thank you to the panel for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.